Discover the unparalleled beauty of Kanab, Utah, the heart of the parks, and the ultimate base camp for your national park adventures. Kanab, Utah offers easy access to not one, not two, but three of America's most iconic national parks. Explore the majestic Grand Canyon, hike the stunning trails of Zion, and witness the awe-inspiring landscapes of Bryce Canyon. All just a stone's throw away from Kanab. But Kanab is more than just a gateway. Locals call it the Little Hollywood. It's a charming town with a vibrant community. So whether you're an outdoor enthusiast, a nature lover, or a curious traveler, Kanab welcomes you to make unforgettable memories in the heart of the parks. Plan your journey to Kanab today at visitkanabutah.com. Your gateway to endless adventures starts here.
Well, shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. If you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page, and please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI Podcast episode, I talk with Melissa Ambers about process optimization, organizational development, and business development. Melissa Ambers, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm super excited to be talking about efficiencies and process optimizations within the workplace. We're going to talk about this from a people perspective and organizational development perspective. Where are you joining me from today, Melissa?
I am in Houston, Texas.
Wonderful. And I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. This will just be a fun conversation. As we get started, I wanted to share Melissa's bio with everybody. Melissa Ambers is the President and Chief Administrative Officer of Strategic Blueprint Consulting LLC and Savvy Media Group, Inc. Melissa has extensive experience in business operations, process improvement and modernization, and leadership management. She has 4 stages to strengthen departments for sustainable processes, including clarifying the vision, analyzing the problem and risks, building a sustainable strategy, and evaluating and executing. These steps are crucial to the success of business operations and customer service. She received an honorary doctorate for entrepreneurship in October of 2020. She also has her certifications in project management, Six Sigma Black Belt, public relations, and event planning. And she also attended Harvard Business Online to receive her e-diploma certificate of completion for disruptive strategy and sustainable business strategy. What a tremendous background. It's a pleasure to have you. Anything else you would like to share with me or my listeners by way of your background or personal context before we dive on in?
That pretty much covers it. Thank you so much.
Well, good. So I outlined a little bit there in your bio, your 4 stages to strengthen department sustainable processes. And as we talk about organizational and process optimization, why don't we start there and tell us a little bit more about your general framing around efficiency and optimization, and then we can dig into each of those 4 elements a little bit more specifically.
Sure, absolutely. I always like to start out with just keep it simple. Most time, when people hear about processes, they get frantic and like, oh my God, it's a lot of work. We're going to have to do all of these different things. And of course, that could be dependent on the situation, but we always like to just keep it simple. Processes is not about, being complex and just getting the most expensive system or the system that's more popular that everyone else is using. You really have to, I tell my clients, we really have to look at what your business is. What do you want to, what are you doing for your customers? What is your internal processes? We have to really dig deep and decide on what that is before we say, okay, this would be the, right system for you. And, it's just real. Sometimes they're using the right system, but just not using all the functions that the system has to offer. So, anytime I get with any of my clients, it's all about, let's do an assessment. Let's really do a deep dive and not just look at the surface, because the surface usually always looks really pretty. But we want to get under that surface and really dig deep down and just really look at what's going on, talk to the people, because the people are the ones that's talking to the customers. They're having that everyday interaction and see the problems, whether it's with the system, the process, or just, things that the customers just simply are not liking, and, find out why that is. So I just like to really, say, keep it simple and do a really deep dive to understand what's going on and why.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Talking to the people on the front lines is going to always be the first place you should start. Mm-hmm. They just see things and they have a perspective on things that is much closer to the action, right? It's much closer to the customer. It's much closer to the customer experience. And whether you're talking about B2C or B2B types of interactions, the same thing applies. And so often when we're talking about efficiencies and just trying to improve processes and optimization, you have, the C-suite, or you have leaders sitting in a room talking and strategizing, and they're having good thoughts, but it's just so disconnected from the actual real day-to-day work right. life and the processes that are actually happening, that they just don't even know what the gaps are. They couldn't possibly know. And a lot of times organizations will end up dumping money behind a problem that may very well be a very legitimate problem, but instead of just talking to the people, coming up with what could be a pretty simple, straightforward and inexpensive solution, they end up going through this huge organizational development and change process to do some huge system implementation right. Or integration, all these new things that don't actually solve the problem. So just start by listening. I like to call them the living experts. Talk to and listen to the living experts. They may not have the same degrees as you. They may not have the same mm-hmm. years of experience as you. They may not have like a understanding of all things strategy and all those sorts of things, but they know what it's like to do the work, and they know what it's like to interact with the customer.
Right. You're absolutely right. I like to call them partners. And I do that because when you work with your partner, you consider them as your equal, and you don't have a problem with talking to them. You're not going in guarded up that, I'm your superior, or the employees going to their leader like, I don't know if I should say this, I don't want them to snap at me, or, all these different things. So it's that really that communication between the two that has to be retrained on how to communicate with each other. And that's on both ends. Because, most of the time, we have these managers, leaders, supervisors that's in these leadership roles. And it's all about, dictating and delegating and not really talking and listening. So I like to say, talk to your partner, because if you don't have those frontline living experts to work with the customer and do all these things that need to be done, then if that partner is not there, you have another hole. Now, you're running into the direction of not having enough people and trying to go, through all these agencies and things. And you have this huge, overhead costs because other people have to jump in and fill in because you're, missing this gap. So I like to call them your partners to, talk to them, have that open communication, and really listen to what they're saying. And on the other end, when your leaders or supervisors coming to you to talk and listen, you don't go in guarded with, already, suited up for battle that, okay, well, they're going to come back at me with something. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready for battle because I need to prove my point. So on both ends, they need to be retrained on how to communicate and understand that, okay, we're here to work together. This is a partnership. If we don't do this, then the job is not going to get done. And that can, a chain reaction of so many other things, to happen with that. But open up that communication. And when, managers say, oh, we have an open door policy here, a lot of times that open door policy is not really open. It's not about just that my door is open and you can walk in. It goes a little deeper than that, of really having an open door policy and being able to say, okay, I'm here to listen. Tell me what the problem is. Let's see how we can come with a solution, or where can we meet in the middle? But, it's really doing what makes sense, and not to say do it because I like it or do it because they want it. It's doing it what makes sense for that organization. So talking to those partners or living experts to really understand what is going on, because they are on the front line and you are missing a lot of those things happening. So before you go and do this huge, renovation of processes and systems and all of these things, have that conversation first before you invest money and do this big overhaul.
Amen. And while that sounds obvious, I mean, as we're saying that, I'm like, duh, of course everyone would do that. But guess what? Very few people actually do that. And I'm not quite sure why. I think, there's a level of, I think people come from a place of sincerity. Most people want to do right by others, and most people are doing the best they know how. But I think there can be a level of arrogance involved. There can be a level of, I just know better than them, maybe a little bit of snobbery. I went to a really good school. I got my MBA. I know what needs to happen. They don't know what needs to happen, right. So there can be some of that. I think sometimes it's just the natural breakdown in communication that happens in organizations. Mm-hmm. And so you just don't proactively go out and have those conversations and try to gather that information, that data that is necessary. So even when people have the best of intentions to want to listen and to want to go and get the input of others, it's been my experience that most fail pretty miserably at doing that effectively. And so then they end up doing what you just described. And it's baffling because it's so time consuming and expensive, and people get upset, and there's just all these negative consequences, yet organizations and leaders do it again and again and again. So, I mean, that's the kind of foundational piece. Like, let's just listen first. That'll help us better understand the real pressing issues, not the symptoms, but the real root causes, to better understand what actually needs to happen. And by listening to our frontline people, we're going to have a better sense of what can and should happen. And then we can move forward from there. Then we can start to put in place new processes, new optimization and such to improve the work life of everybody. And if we do that, I think most people will get on board. But it's when that doesn't happen that people are resistant to change, and a lot of those other challenges occur. Mm-hmm. And I think this gets us into that 4-stage process that you were describing: clarify the vision, analyze the problems and risks, build a sustainable strategy, and evaluate and execute. As I'm thinking about that first piece, clarify the vision, you can't really even start. You can't clarify that vision until you actually really go and talk to people first, right? And build that trust and really be on some sort of shared wavelength and have a shared understanding. So let's talk a little bit more about that. How do you go about starting that process of clarifying that vision?
To start the process, it actually starts with the decision makers, because they're the one that's going to make the final decision on what can and cannot happen. And when I say start with the decision makers, it's letting them know, yes, you have this vision. Yes, you want to do these things. Yes, you want to implement this system or processes, but have you done, this? Like, go down and talk to the frontline people. When you look at that chart, you're here, you need to start down here and work your way up to really understand what's going on and why is it happening. And once I have that conversation with the decision makers, then they start to understand that, okay, I get it. And then not only that, to piggyback a little bit on what you were saying earlier, it can also save you money. So many organizations don't realize how much money it can save them. They always have in their mind, okay, the profit, what profits are we making? Why are we not making profit? Part of that profit comes from the money the necessary money that's being spent on your daily operations. So, making them understand that. And then once that's done, it's just creating that system. Okay, let's start with, Department A and work from Department A to B. And, and sometimes it may be a little jump to really see, what's overlapping. What are they doing? And if A and B should be following the exact same process. And once I have that conversation and we can understand why they're not following the process, it could be something as simple as, yes, we should follow the same process, but because we do this, we have to do this, and that makes us double work. Now, you get into that. So it's really starting with these departments at the lower levels and really understanding. But first, I would start with that decision maker to make sure that they understand that how we have to flow through there, because the idea that they have of just implementing something and training people it's not going to work. You're going to waste money. You're going to waste time because it's not being done the proper way. And, it's also with so many want to do the leadership training. It's right now it's about, okay, let's check the box. Yes, we've done it. But you have to have some type of assessment with each one of your leaders because you have different needs. You put them all in one room, have a general conversation. All right, check. We've done leadership training, but have you really solved the issue? Do you know what your leaders are needing? Do you know what leaders don't know how to work with their staff? Do you know what leaders are not understanding the current processes, what systems they're not trained on, communication? I mean, we can go on and on and on, with that, but do an assessment with your leaders to really understand what they know, what they don't know. And then let's break out some different training so we could be sure that we're, hitting on those points of what the leaders really need. And I just throw all of them in one room. We have a general leadership training, check the box, it's done. And you spent this money, but you still haven't solved the problem. So it's really, looking deep and understanding and making sure you have the correct training for leaders, employees, even the C-suite executives, making sure you have the correct training for them and not just a general training to check off a box.
Yeah. And again, that sounds obvious. It rarely happens. And it is interesting because with people moving to more virtual work over the last couple of years, if I look at the learning and development or training and development industry over the last couple of decades, it's been predominantly face-to-face instruction with some e-learning modules and some do that better than others, but it's been largely face-to-face. And if it's not face-to-face, then there's maybe recorded videos or you're clicking through slides or doing some sort of e-learning kind of an approach. Well, what's happened in recent years and in part spurred on by the pandemic and the move towards more virtual and hybrid work is that there's new learning and development, training and development online platforms that allow for personalization and specialization of topics in real time, AI driven, that are specific to the needs, the competencies and capabilities of the person that's participating, so that they don't waste their time on stuff that they've already mastered, so that they don't have to rehash things over and over and over again that they've already learned, that they can move on to things that are only relevant to them and their jobs, and they don't have to spend half a day listening to stuff that doesn't even apply to them and isn't relevant to them and their ability to do their work. Now that can happen in a face-to-face environment too. It's just harder when you have a face-to-face, you have a classroom of 30 participants and you're trying to tailor the content and the message to every individual. That's really hard. But there are more and more ed tech and, L&D kind of software optimization solutions that are out there that can personalize and in real time make it a very targeted experience for people to really meet what you just described. So, I definitely, that's not the main topic of our conversation today, but I would definitely encourage listeners to pay attention to that and to look out and talk to some some of those firms for your training and development, learning and development needs within your organization. Yes. So we start with the decision makers. We start with, thinking through the reskilling, the upskilling, the learning and development needs of the organization. Then we get into the problem solving, the analyzing the problems and the risks involved. And anytime we're talking about optimization, we have to truly understand what is at the root cause of whatever gap we're experiencing. What is the breakdown? Where is the bottleneck? Those are the things we're trying to establish. What do you suggest to leaders who want to get to the root problem, but it's just so common for people to end up putting Band-Aids on symptoms, and then they just end up playing whack-a-mole with problems. And, they temporarily solve one problem only to create another problem, and they're not actually solving the root issue.
I would suggest that, they take that step back, like you were just saying, take the step back, pause for a moment, and not be so quick to jump into this solution. Take the time to have those conversations. I would say, have powwow sessions, go into a conference room or have a day, have a working lunch, and with all your departments, but of course it may have to be on different days, but have these powwow sessions. Go all in to a conference room, treat them to lunch, and just let everybody be open, good or bad. But they also have to give their employees the confidence that this is an open forum, say what you will, good or bad, because if you don't let us know, we won't know. But they have to have that confidence that what they're saying are true, because so many say, okay, say what you want to say, but before you know it, for various reasons, they're going to be retaliated against, whether it could be termination or they just start being treated differently on the job. And employees have a hard enough time getting up, coming to work with personal family life and, coming to these jobs. So adding that on top of everything else just is not good. So I think really, making it to where they feel comfortable, changing the culture, changing the environment. So they feel comfortable when they come to work, that they feel comfortable talking to you. In the mornings, go out and chit chat with them, not just walk by, hey, good morning, and keep walking. Really show some interest, start gaining their trust. And what so many managers don't realize is that your employees don't trust you. They really don't. They just know, okay, I need to come in, do my job. When it's time to leave, let me get my stuff and go home. They don't trust you. So you have to start building that trust with them first. And once you start building that trust, go have these powwow sessions and let them be open and good or bad. Even if they may say, okay, well, something that you're doing, you're doing this because of this and it's not right. Be open to that. Don't be open only to them pointing fingers at someone else. It can actually be you as the leader that have issues, that didn't realize that, okay, I was doing this. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. And that happens. We're all human, that we may be doing things and we just don't realize it. But be open to that without retaliating or acting a certain way with this person because they brought it, to light. So I think once that happened, it will not only change the culture, but your employees or your partners will be more open to come in and really go above and beyond when they need to and when you're asking them to. So building that trust with them first, have those powwow sessions and really document what is going on, why is it going on? And then it will, make sense then for you to start, okay, now let's build a plan. Let's build this blueprint on how we should do these things. And as you're going through these processes, this is what's going to also revamp those SOPs for the ones that actually have them on staff. So it's going to help to revamp that. So changing that culture and building trust with your employees is like a huge thing that has to happen in a lot of these organizations.
It's absolutely true. And trust is the foundation of everything. So if we don't have that, we really don't have much of a chance of any of these process optimizations and OD and change initiatives really taking hold. And that actually gets into that next point sustainable strategy, sustainable change. We don't have time to get into any depth on that or in terms of the evaluate and execute stages that you outlined. But I do just want to reiterate that it's just so essential that we focus on sustainability, that we are strategic in our approach, and that we have a sustainability plan, that we have an evaluation and assessment plan, so that we know that what we're doing is making the type of impact that we intended or not. And, maybe unintended consequences that we need to address. And it needs to be an iterative cycle so we can constantly be seeing how to tweak and to adjust and to improve what we're doing. So if we can do that, I think the resistance of people to change will diminish greatly, because they'll be able to see the benefits. They'll be able to see really the measurable outcomes of what we're trying to do with past changes and past optimization and process shifts. And all of that will just lead to them being more likely to buy in and adopt the new shifts in the future. And we're in an age of rapid technological advancement. We have a lot of social change and upheaval and all these things. Like, change is the constant. And so we just need to prepare people to be change ready, to be agile. All of this will help us to run better organizations.
Absolutely.
Well, Melissa, it has just been a real pleasure. I note the time. I have to let you go here in just a minute. But before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Absolutely. You can reach me. Just simply go to LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel, which is Sustainable Blueprint Consulting. But LinkedIn is the first and the place where you can really reach me, send me a message, connect with me. And my LinkedIn is just, linkedin.com, Melissa Amber. So it's real simple to go there. And, as we were talking, just be sure you're always looking at the long-term solution and not the solution of today. You want to look at the long-term solution as you're going through your changes and processes.
Amen. Well said, Melissa. It's been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Melissa can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page. And please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.
Discover the unparalleled beauty of Kanab, Utah, the heart of the parks, and the ultimate base camp for your national park adventures. Kanab, Utah offers easy access to not one, not two, but 3 of America's most iconic national parks. Explore the majestic Grand Canyon, hike the stunning trails of Zion, and witness the awe-inspiring landscapes of Bryce Canyon. All just a stone's throw away from Kanab. But Kanab is more than just a gateway. Locals call it the Little Hollywood. It's a charming town with a vibrant community. So whether you're an outdoor enthusiast, a nature lover, or a curious traveler, Kanab welcomes you to make unforgettable memories in the heart of the parks. Plan your journey to Kanab today at visitkanabutah.com. Your gateway to endless adventures starts here.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.